How are you now? Hello and welcome to the first ever video episode of the Bottom 6 Minutes podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm Matt Drake, and we're here in my new office in the house. So I don't even have my mic boom set up. I'm going to be holding it like a dumbass. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about the Habs and Lightning game number 2 after the Habs took a thrilling OT victory on Juraj Slafkovsky's hat trick to take game 1 in Tampa. They're back in Tampa and looking to try and take a 2-game series lead on the road. I don't usually make videos for these. I do everything audio only, so I'm hoping that the quality is going to be somewhat decent for this video. But the analysis is going to be what it always is. Anybody who listens to me already on any of the other platforms I'm on, you'll know I like to complain about the refs. There was certainly lots to complain about, I think, for both teams last game, and I like to talk about the Montreal Canadiens, what they do well, what they don't do well, and they did just about everything as well as they could against Tampa in the last game. They were the better team at 5-on-5. The power play finally clicked. The penalties that were called, again, like I said, probably a little bit problematic for both teams in that one. So realistically, I don't think a big advantage for either side. But if you get those same amount of penalties in game number 2, you have to be prepared to, number one, defend against Tampa, who have a fantastic power play, and number two, put some in yourselves. Because the reality is, if you go into a game where both teams get 6 power plays, you need to convert on at least 2 of those, maybe 3, in order to get the win. That's exactly what the Habs did in game 1. It's what they're going to have to do in game 2. No lineup changes for the Montreal Canadiens are expected. For Tampa, we will have at least one lineup change. Charles-Edouard Dastou is out as a result of the hit he took from Josh Anderson in game 1, and that brings in Scott Sabourin. So anybody who's listened to me on the other platforms that I'm on, you will have heard me on the last episode say that I thought the physicality Montreal brought might make them want to bring in Scott Sabourin. And I think that's a bad idea for them. Now, I don't know how many other options they really had because that wasn't quite the reason that they're putting him into the game wasn't quite what I had said, which was just to match the physicality. They actually need a body in this case. But I think it's to the advantage of the Montreal Canadiens because Sabourin, he's an NHL player. He's definitely better at hockey than me, who's never played in the NHL. He's not nearly as good as the rest of those players. I think that he is a definitive negative for the Tampa Bay Lightning by being in this game. And I'm going to do this episode a little bit differently than I normally do. So for those who've never seen my face or listened to my podcast before, normally I react at the end of the game, go through all of the periods that have happened. Instead, for this one, I'm recording this right now before the game starts. We're about 10 minutes away from puck drop or supposed puck drop at 7 p.m. Eastern. And after that, I will come back, record something for the first period, same thing for the second, and then we'll do it again at the third for the end of the game. And who knows, we might be going to overtime again because these teams seem very evenly matched on the ice. I don't think it's going to be all that easy for anybody to get regulation wins in this series. I think it's going to be very close. I certainly hope that the Habs are able to make a game out of this and try to take that 2-game lead before we get the series back to the Bell Center. So with no further ado, we'll take a quick pause here, and I'll come back to this video after I watch the first period. Well, that was a period of hockey, playoff hockey, intensity. Let's see if I can even get us through everything that happened in that first period between the Habs and Lightning. Look, the top line for the Habs go out there: Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Juraj Slafkovsky. Great shift early in the game. Spend most of it in the offensive zone. Set the tone, and everybody followed suit. For the first 5 minutes, the Habs were the team with all the shots, with all the opportunities. I think it was 4-0 in shots in the first 5 minutes. Unfortunately, that's eerily similar to the game 1 situation where the Habs had none of the shots. Tampa had 4 or 5, and Montreal ended up scoring first. Well, this time it's Tampa that ends up scoring first. Caden Gooley breaks his stick. Tampa's in the offensive zone, and obviously you got a defender chasing around Jake Gensel. No, not Jake Gensel. It's Brandon Hagel with no stick. He gets the first block on the first shot that Hagel tries to take, and the second one just gets through a mess of bodies, including Gooley's, and it beats Jakub Dobish, and it's 1-0 for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But the Habs are playing a really, really solid game so far. You feel like if they keep up exactly what they've been doing, eventually they're going to find one for themselves. The biggest surprise of this first period was that it took like 10 minutes for us to have the first big scrum after a whistle. And it happens in the Tampa zone. Arbor Xhekaj is going at it with Yanni Gourde. And for whatever reason, the refs decide that Arbor Xhekaj is getting the extra 2 out of that. It's going to be a power play for Tampa on top of them having a 1-goal lead. And I figured, all right, here's the refs are going to start stepping in here, and it's going to be 3 or 4 consecutive power plays in a row for Tampa or something like that. But the Habs turned in a really good kill on this one. They get out of it. They almost score at the end of it with Jake Evans coming in on a 2-on-1 with Alex Newhook. Doesn't go. Evans gets tackled from behind on the secondary chance. No call on that. And then they're about to call the Habs for another penalty, but Nikita Kucherov gets called for interference. And immediately after Nikita Kucherov gets called for interference, we get another scrum, this time in the Habs zone. And I'm talking tons of names out there that are fighting. Josh Anderson, Arbor Jacki, Jake Evans, Darren Radish, Jake Gensel, Brandon Hagel. Everyone's involved. And I can't make a damn fucking second of sense out of who's going to get the extra penalty in this one, but I know it's going to be someone. I figure it's going to be the Habs because they did it in the last scrum, but to the refs' credit, they decide that this one's going to go Tampa. So first scrum, Montreal got the extra. Second scrum, Tampa gets the extra, and that means it's a power play for the Montreal Canadiens because they already had 2 minors that were going to be coincidental before that. Can they take advantage of it? Yes, they can. This time it's Nick Suzuki on the half wall. They're right near the end of that actual power play, and he throws it up to the point, tees up Lane Hudson, who just fires away. I think it hit a Tampa leg on the way through, and it beats Vasilevsky. We're all tied up at 1. We're not anywhere near done with the hostilities, though, in this period because we keep getting scrums after that. Not long after the goal, we don't get a scrum right away. What we get is a brutal missed call in favor of the Lightning. Nikita Kucherov hits Josh Anderson right in the back, well after he got rid of the puck. Doesn't get called for it. But what they do call is the most obvious makeup I've seen in quite some time. They get Nick Paul for a soft cross check in the back. Now, you'll take it if you're the Montreal Canadiens. You want the power play. You'd love to have the actual guy in the box who deserves to be there, but you'll take it. Okay. Unfortunately, the Habs have tired legs. The top line can't stay out there for the entire 2 minutes. Second unit rather can't get it done either. And they get out of that one with nothing. But then at the very end of the period, just when you think it's about to all be over for a little bit for the Zamboni to come out, Yanni Gourde decides to hit Bolduc after the whistle has gone to end the period. That starts an entirely new scrum. Everybody's fighting. Nick Paul tackled somebody and they're rolling around the ice. I don't even know who it was because they're literally his nameplate and face is completely covered to the broadcast. The camera can't even keep up with the amount of, scuffles that are going on out there. Not full fights, but scuffles. This game has the most intensity that I've seen from a game, maybe since the mid 90s, honestly. It's an absolute clusterfuck. And I don't know what the refs are going to call at the end of this. I don't think they know. And frankly, I don't know if I could blame them if they end up getting the calls wrong because how do you even keep track of all the things that are going on in this game? I'll be back after a short break to talk about the second period. I'll let you know if the game calms down at all. I sincerely doubt it, though. Second period, well, you could say the intensity died down a little bit. Not very much. Early on, well, I should talk about the scrum first. They didn't give anybody a power play out of that. They decided to even it up, which I can't complain about. Honestly, the first one went Tampa's way. The second one went Montreal's way. The third one, even it up, send a bunch of guys to the box and try to figure it out. Juraj Slafkovsky ended up having a good chance early on in the second. That one got stopped. We don't get any scrums in the first 5 minutes or so. So I'm thinking maybe it's going to calm down a little bit. But nope. Brandon Hagel and Juraj Slafkovsky have a fight. It doesn't go Juraj Slafkovsky's way, but these are two guys that don't really fight in regular games. So that should tell you all you need to know about how intense this series and this game is and is going to continue to be. We see Slav sitting in the box for 5 minutes. That's a bit problematic for the Habs because, of course, they want to have him out there. The top line is much better with him out there. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are much better with Nikita Kucherov on the ice, but he's also an asshole. Near midway, he gets called for offside, or Tampa gets called for offside, rather, and then he's got the puck, and he winds up like he's going to clap the puck at the linesman for calling that offside. Now, Arbor Jacki got an unsportsmanlike earlier in the period that I'm not even too sure what exactly he did. But you would think maybe that's an unsportsmanlike. And you also would think because NHL refs are vindictive that maybe the next call is going to go against him. It does not. Caden Gooley reaches in on him a little bit. He's diving before Caden Gooley's stick even touches him, and the refs give him the call. They call Caden Gooley for a hook. They don't call him for a dive. Tampa gets a power play. Montreal's in trouble. This is ridiculous, but they get out of it by the skin of their teeth because Tampa is in the offensive zone for pretty much the entire 2 minutes. Now you got to figure out a way to make them pay for that. And you're going to probably have to do it at 5-on-5 because it seems like the refs are backing off from the calls a little bit. They know they got that one wrong. They know they can't keep getting them wrong. They don't want to get them wrong. And you feel like maybe this game's going to be won and lost at 5-on-5 instead of the power play like the last game. And then late in the period, we get a monstrous 5-on-5 shift from the so-called fourth line. Philippe Danault, Jake Evans, Josh Anderson out there forechecking for their lives. And Philippe Danault is behind the net. He wins a battle. He throws it out front, and that puck's fluttering, and Josh Anderson gets to it. He scores again on the Tampa Bay Lightning, a Lightning killer. It's 2-1 for the Montreal Canadiens. On top of that, with 40 seconds on the clock, Ryan McDonagh decides he's going to take a run at Cole Caulfield, basically just punches him instead of hitting him. And that's going to be a 2-minute penalty for roughing. So the refs do decide they're going to make a call at the end of the period here. Habs can't do anything with the 40 seconds that they've got, but they're going to start the third with 1:20 of power play time. I'll be back, I guess, in a minute or two to let you guys, well, more than a minute or two for me. It'll be less than a minute for you watching the video or listening on Spotify or wherever you're listening. But this game is going to be a wild sprint to the finish. And like I said at the end of the first, are things going to calm down? I doubt it, but I'll let you know if it does. Third period, things actually did calm down a little bit. I was surprised. Less scrums. Both teams very focused on the task at hand instead of trying to beat each other up. Takes away a little bit of the intensity, but certainly the gameplay that you're seeing is definitely intense, definitely fast-paced, definitely two teams that really want this one because it's a massive swing in the series one way or the other. And the Habs, as they often do with the lead, look a little too content to just flip pucks out of the zone into the neutral zone and try to just park the bus a little bit. The problem with that is most of the success that they've had against the Lightning is when they really go after them. And we're not seeing that enough in the period. Demidov ends up taking a tripping penalty about 7 minutes or 6.5 minutes into the frame. Didn't get a replay on that one, so I don't know if it was a good call. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and it's not the thing that you want to do when defending a lead against the Lightning in the third period. The Habs, however, turn in a fantastic kill. Jake Evans, Mike Matheson, Josh Anderson, all three of them have been huge for this team on the kill all season. And in this game in particular, they really did a good job limiting opportunities for the Lightning. And unfortunately, they can't limit all of the opportunities. About 7 and change left in the period. Juraj Slafkovsky is along the half wall trying to come out of the zone. He throws it into the middle. It gets intercepted. Lightning end up with a shot on goal. The first one stopped, but the rebound goes behind the net, and Nikita Kucherov gets that rebound and wraps it into the net. We're tied up at 2. Late period. A wonderful opportunity presents itself for the Montreal Canadiens. Scott Sabourin hits Josh Anderson right in the back after he had gotten rid of the puck. A copy paste of the hit that Nikita Kucherov didn't get called for. And they call it this time. Not only do they call it a 5-minute major. They would review it and rescind it back down to a 2, which I think was probably the right call for that hit. I don't think that necessarily warranted a major. But this is with just over 2 minutes left in the period. The Habs have a chance here, if they can put one in on this power play, to walk out of Tampa with a 2-game series lead. Unfortunately, their best chance came off the stick of Lane Hudson and hit the post. And that takes us to the end of regulation. So 2 games into this series, and we're going to overtime for the second time. I don't know what it would take for somebody to win a game in regulation here. Time and space is non-existent. Nobody can really make the plays that they want to make because you're not going to be open enough. You're not going to be left alone long enough to even think about what you want to do with the puck. And decisions have to be made at an absolute snap. I don't want to get mad at Slafkovsky for that pass, but I think you saw it on his face after the goal went in. He knew that he made a mistake, and I don't think he's going to make that mistake again. Certainly hope he doesn't make that mistake in overtime, which is where we're about to go. And before I do, I guess this is a good time for me to maybe insert my ad read. Folks, the bottom 6 minutes is brought to you by FanDuel. And how about the odds on one of the Wednesday night games? How about the Anaheim Ducks and Edmonton Oilers that had a fantastic game last night? Currently, as of this recording, the Oilers are favored by 1.5 on FanDuel. The Anaheim Ducks are underdogs by 1.5, and the over-under is set at 6.5 total goals. If you think like you know how that one's going to go, or maybe any other game, heading over to FanDuel. They've got that and many other things that you can bet on. Of course, as always, I recommend that you bet responsibly, know your limit, stay within it. And with that, back to the podcast. With that, back to the Habs. With that, on to overtime, which I'm dreading a little bit because it is such a parallel to the last game that the Lightning went up 1-0. The Habs climb back up to go 2-1. Lightning tie it up. We go to overtime. The big difference, of course, is the Lightning don't have a power play to start this overtime, and the Habs did. So we're going to see 5-on-5. I think we're going to see the refs very reticent to call anything penalty-wise. And I'll be back after I get the chance to watch that to let you know if I was right whatsoever. Well, I was right in a sense about the overtime that the refs would not be calling very many penalties. Tampa was getting away with clutching and grabbing. Josh Anderson got away with a hit straight up completely after the whistle, obviously after the whistle. They didn't really show up other than to call the lines and decide who won by calling the goal. And the problem there is that the Habs also didn't really show up for that overtime. They looked listless. They looked out of energy. The only guy that really was bringing any intensity was Josh Anderson. And I wish the rest of the team would have matched that energy. They had a big opportunity there to go up 2-0 in the series, and they let it slip away. Shots were 5-0 by like the 7-minute mark for Tampa. Habs, 12 minutes into the OT, they still don't have a shot on goal. And, a bad icing comes down into the Habs zone. JJ Moser gets it, circles around the top of the zone, fires a nice shot through a little bit of traffic. And just like that, the series is tied up at 1. Exact same score, exact same scenario, a little bit later in the overtime, of course, for Tampa than it was for Montreal. But, man, the parallel between those two games is crazy. It's crazy. I mean, team that goes up first ends up giving up 2 goals and falling behind, ends up tying it up, goes to overtime and wins it there. It sucks, but we'll go to the silver lining of the night. And for those of you who maybe don't or haven't listened to the audio version of my podcast before, silver lining of the night is something I started doing during the rebuild. I've been doing this podcast audio only since the 2021 run. And after that run, everybody knows it got dark for us quick. We were bottom 5 of the league for 3 years in a row. And during that time, we were losing a lot. And so recording the podcast, I wanted to have something positive to talk about during those losses. And a lot of it was the young players. What are they doing? So I do the same thing now because even though the team's good, I think it's beneficial to look at what went well and what might be able to go well as a result of what has happened already. And my first silver lining is definitely just the fact that they got the split in Tampa, which was the mission all along. Right? It has nothing to do with that game itself. It sucks for you to give up the opportunity to go up 2-0. But if they get the split and they go back to the Bell Center and they win 2 there, they've already shown Tampa that they can win in their building. So I think you put a ton of pressure on them if you can go have 2 really good performances in Montreal. They get 2 days off before they go there. The split isn't really a silver lining from this game itself, but rather the 2 games set in Tampa as a whole. They've not only gotten the split, but they've also proven to Tampa they're not to be taken lightly, right? I think a lot of people had Tampa walking through the Habs in this series, taking it in 5, maybe 6. I haven't seen a lot of pundits that aren't, Habs respecters or Habs fans predicting the Habs to win the series at all. When I did our pre-series podcast, I said Habs in 7. So we all knew they were going to lose a game at some point. I don't think anybody had the Habs beating them in 4, except for some diehards. I know the HFTV guys were down in Florida and they had Habs in 4 jerseys, which was great. But I think most of us understood that that was an unlikely result. And they were going to have to probably face some adversity. They were going to have to lose a game, probably more than 1 game before they win this series. And the important thing is they got that split and they showed Tampa, this ain't going to be no walk in the park. You're going to have to play. My other silver lining has a lot to do with that game and the one before, and it's Josh Anderson. He is a big part of why Tampa now understands this ain't a fucking walk in the park. He is all over them. He's looking to hit everything that moves. I would probably say pull back on the hits after the whistle. Let's not take a penalty that we don't need to take because I've said it before. I'll say it again. Tampa has an excellent power play. That said, I also don't want to put a muzzle on him. I want to let him go out there and be the dog that he is right now. And I think Martin St. Louis is going to do exactly that. I don't think he's really going to change anything about Anderson's game. I think the way he's playing right now translates super well to when you have home ice advantage and you can control the matchups a little bit more as well. And that line in general has been great for the Habs. Putting Danault and Evans together, you wouldn't think to put two of your best defensive centers in the same line, but it works. Everything that they do is high level, and they don't allow very much defensively. And they can create offensively with a guy like Anderson there to just drive the net and get some of those greasy goals. So big silver lining for Anderson. I really think he's just a thorn in the side of the Tampa Bay Lightning, pissing off Nikita Kucherov. He's doing everything he possibly can to turn this into a dogfight where he knows he's got a bit of an edge on most guys that are on their roster. Another silver lining, I think, is Jakub Dobeš. You look at that overtime, it could have been over in the first 5 minutes if not for him. He had some people, and not very many, but he had some people saying before the series, like, hey, maybe you go with Jacob Fowler. And I was not in that camp whatsoever. I think their record since the Olympic break had a lot to do with what Jakub Dobeš had done in net, and it made sense to give him the shot. And of course, if he has a horrible game in one of the first two in Tampa, then you start thinking about, okay, we got Jacob Fowler, maybe we give him a shot. But Dobeš through these two games, and especially in that overtime, showed that you can rely on him. He can give you an opportunity. The thing the Habs didn't do was take advantage of that. They didn't let that inspire them and then go out there and have one or two really good shifts and score a goal. I mean, nobody cares if you get outshot in overtime. Everybody remember back, what was it, Game 6 against the Leafs in 2021? They were getting outshot something like 15-3 by the time Jesperi Kotkaniemi took a shot and it got deflected and went in the net. Nobody cares how many shots you allow in overtime as long as that last shot is yours and it goes in the net. Tampa wouldn't have given a single flying fuck about all the shots that they had before if they went out and had one good shift. So Jakub Dobeš, for his part, gave them the opportunity to do that. They didn't do it, but you know what? I think they're looking back at their net right now and they're feeling pretty confident about who they have there. And I think that'll translate well to the Habs home ice when they get back to the Bell Center and they get to play in front of their own fans. The confidence is going to be there. They'll have control of the matchups. My one concern is, and I think this has been pointed out ad nauseum at this point by most of the people in the mainstream media, they don't have as good of a record at home this season as they do on the road. Now, playoff Bell Center is a different thing. I think most people who are watching this have probably been to a playoff game at the Bell Center. I have. It is definitely a different animal. It is definitely a bit of an intimidation factor for some other teams that go in there. And if they feed off that energy and they play the way that they were playing in Tampa, I really think they have an opportunity to get those two games. The concern, of course, is they haven't really shown that this season in general. But they're going to get a couple of days off, and the next game will be on Friday. So at least a bit of a break, bit of time off to rest, relax. 2 overtime games in a row in the span of 3 nights. I think that can be a little bit rough on anybody. You got to come into the Bell Center with the most possible energy, feed off what that crowd's going to give you, and try to make some magic happen. Apologies for the weird little cut there. My dog stormed in and my phone kept going off. So had to stop the video and restart it. Now, that's really all I have to say about the game. Go to Montreal, try to make some magic happen. You've proven to Tampa that you're not to be taken lightly. Their fans are probably more nervous than they were when the series started. Their coaches and players, I guarantee you, are more nervous. I mean, you've had 2 games go to overtime. They could very well be down 2 in the series, both on home ice. So going into Montreal, they've got a lot of pressure to now go out and do the same thing that the Habs did, which is win at least one at the Bell Center. And they're not going to make it easy. I'm not saying that Tampa's so scared of Montreal now that they're going to be shaking in their boots or anything. This is a team with a lot of experience. You got a lot of guys over there that have rings on their fingers. You're going to make it tough, and it's probably going to get more intense. And the good news is the Habs have proven that they're not going to get pushed around, right? A lot of people were worried about their size or lack thereof going into the playoffs. A lot of people worried if they could withstand the intensity of playoff hockey. They've shown that not only can they withstand it, that they can be the aggressors and that they're not backing down to a more experienced, more veteran team. So it's good news. Unfortunate result here in this one, but hopefully they've got better for us when it turns to the Bell Center. That's all I got to say about that game. If you like this video, click like. click subscribe. Would definitely encourage me to keep making them. If not, if you didn't like it, well, don't click like, don't click subscribe. Don't finish the video. And then I'll probably just go back to doing it on audio only. But it's been fun testing this out in my new office. It's been fun watching the Montreal Canadiens win at least one on the road to start this playoff series. And hopefully there's more fun to come. So that's it for this one. We're well over 25 minutes, I think. So, c'est une grosse soirée pour les employés de soutien. We are on Spotify, Google Play, Apple as well for podcasts if you prefer the audio version and don't want to look at my mug. Of course, thank you for watching or listening. And as always, à la prochaine.